Hello again, everybody. Here's my other video that I said that I wanted to share this other experience I had had. Um, so, like I said before, this is the other side, as when I was a witness or actively a witness. This goes back about 20 years ago, and like I've said before, I started having doubts that long. Actually, more than 20 years ago, I started having my doubts on certain things, and there was a few people that I could talk to without fearing some kind of retribution. I was able to speak to my father, longtime elder. He even agreed with me on a lot of things. But what was so nice about it is I could speak to him without worrying about saying, "Well, you need to go to the elders. We need to get this taken care of." That never happened. I also had a very close friend who was also an elder, and I was able to speak to him as well. So I had doubts, and I spoke up about them, but I just knew who I could and could not speak these to. And I like I said before, I've made no qualms about it. I have never enjoyed field service, just hated it. It was all I could do to get myself out there. And I was at this particular time, I was a ministerial servant, and I was actually close to becoming an elder. They were getting to the point where I was going to be recommended it shortly. Right? They wanted to see, maybe because I was still young, of course. They wanted to see a little more seasoning, if you will, which was fine with me because I felt that was proper. And but that was at that point. But so yeah, service was rough. I hated it, but I enjoyed talking to other people in a more relaxed atmosphere, and not so much the formal way of doing it. So I didn't. I enjoyed way better doing that than anything else. And I would talk to people that I'm not one of those people that would sit in a doctor's office and start a conversation with a complete stranger, or in the line of a grocery store and strike up a conversation. That's too much like the door-to-door service. I would speak to people that I knew, people that I worked with, and things of that nature. And me and many people I worked with at that time had a lot of discussions, and I every time it was like I had nothing but respect for everybody else. But it was a grocery store that I worked at, and the manager, and I was a stocking clerk, and the our supervisor and the manager were good friends, and they both did not like witnesses. They didn't like what we did, but we would have conversations, all the time about different things, and they recognized the fact that I was open with certain things, and I wouldn't even tell them that certain things that they would ask about, or even accuse me of, or accuse us of, I should say. Never really attacked me personally, but I would give them the answer that you're supposed to give. But then I would say, however, me personally, this is the way I feel. And so this happened over quite a few years as I worked there. And this other guy came in. He actually worked from the same store, but in a different location. This is all in the state of Washington. And he came in, and he was a Pentecostal, and he didn't like witnesses either. He just didn't like the what we preached, and that was, like a lot of other people. And him and I'd have all kinds of discussions for, quite some time, about a good year. And it was the same thing. We just agreed to disagree at the time, and that was it. We never jumped at each other. Never had an argument that got out of hand. Never ever happened. But then he started to get involved with the supervisor who did go to church, but he wasn't a big follower. He cussed a lot, and he was just a regular person, nothing special. And he decided to get involved with this guy's church, and this other guy, nice guy. I actually liked him. I enjoyed our conversations. But basically, he was like Scooter from the Muppets, little guy with glasses. He was kind of like that. We actually called him Scooter. It wasn't, to be mean or anything like that. He didn't care. But Scooter had basically he didn't like the fact that that I was a witness, and he didn't say anything till he started getting the supervisor involved in his church and stuff like that. And then he got mean. He he got really flustered, and above and beyond everything, I considered myself a Christian first, and then later on I would say I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But first and foremost, in my opinion, I was a Christian. That was the way I felt, and that was what I believed in my heart. And well, he fired back at me and told me, "No, you're not a Christian. You are a Jehovah's Witness." I was like, "Well, how come you're you haven't acted this way before? We've always had a mutual respect, and if I've offended you in some way, I really want to apologize, and I hope that we haven't burned that bridge. I enjoy our discussions, So he let it go. And then later on, as I had a day off, someone earlier, within that week, it was during the winter time, and the man that owned the store, he also owned the little laundromat right next to it. And everybody that smoked had to go outside to smoke. Couldn't do it at all in the back room or anything. And he allowed people in the wintertime to use the laundromat. So naturally, you're going to have the Watchtower and Awake in there, as witnesses always dropping by. And somebody obviously went in there on a break, maybe it was lunchtime or whatever, smoked a cigarette, saw the magazine sitting there, and then brought him into the break room of the store. And so while I was out on a day off, these two guys, the supervisor and Scooter, got a hold to them and used a magic marker, one of those big Sharpies, and wrote all over it, drew flames on it, and crossed out on the Watchtower, crossed out the word watch, and wrote hell over the top of it. And the Awake, they used that Sharpie to cross out the A, and then wrote a UP on the side, so it said wake up, and wrote flames all over it, put horns on the people's faces, and pitchfork in people's hands. And it's just it was to me, it bothered me, because it was like a hate situation. And I felt that it had gone too far. And, um, and I really hated the fact that it came to the point that it did. Like I said, I had no inhibitions about my feelings towards certain things. I told everybody things that were taught by the Watchtower, and I spoke to them about it. This is what we believe. And like I said before, I would tell them, however, I think this, and I don't agree with that. And they understood that how I felt, but this just kind of went beyond the threshold, and it really, kind of upset me. It really did. And when I went to the supervisor about it, I asked him, I said, "Did you do this?" And he says, "Yeah, me and Adam did it." And that's Scooter, by the way. He says, "Yeah, we did it." And he was kind of laughing. And I said, "Well, I don't really think this is funny. This is kind of hurtful, really. I mean, I realize you disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that." I said, "But you went so far as that. I mean, this really kind of makes me feel bad. It hurts my feelings, really." And well, he got upset, and so of course, here he had been getting involved in this other church. He was not, like I said before, he was a very A-type personality. He loved attention. He would go through while we were working, and he would make whip cracking sounds all the time. "Let's go, ladies," was his favorite thing to say. And he would cuss, and I mean, really bad. If he got mad, he'd cuss us up one side and down the other. And he liked picking out individuals and humiliating them. He did that a lot. But despite that, we did get along. All of us did. And it was just, we realized how he was, and it was just, whatever. It's just him. And so anyway, he says, "Yeah, I did that." And he says, "You had no business bringing that crap in here." I said, "I didn't bring it in here." And he said, "You're lying." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Believe what you want." I said, "Just please don't do this again. It just doesn't make me feel good." So he jumped on me, and his favorite thing after that was to say, "You're going to hell." He told everybody, "You're going to hell." And he even told me, just because a sister in the congregation happened to come into the store and we were talking. Well, of course, she happened to be very pretty. And he looked at me after she walked off and said, "You're going to hell for sure." I looked at him and said, "Why?" He says, "You know why. You were talking to that beautiful woman over there." And I went, "Oh, come on. This person's in the congregation I go to. I know her. She's got a family. Why would I think something like that? I mean, come on." And it was just, that was him. Anyway, he blew up at me. Went to the manager, and the manager actually, like I said, they were good friends for many, many years. Actually fired him for it. And I guess he had to, because of what he did. And well, later on, a couple years later, actually, he did wind up coming back to work and apologized to me for it. But and I was grateful that he did that, in spite of the fact that, yeah, I had my doubts at that time, but I was still involved and ready to defend it. But not to the extent that people do now. And I never did that. And that's why I was so shocked at what these guys did on that day. So like I said, two sides of the same coin. I got to experience that. That's you know, it doesn't make you feel good. I appreciate it better when people don't do that. I've got to sign off for now. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.